Great to have you. When we hear this announcement about the upcoming hearings, does that mean that you are mostly done with the investigation, that it will be largely complete or reported out by June? How should we understand the status of the work?
I think we had hoped to do hearings even sooner than June, but witnesses led to other witnesses, which led to other witnesses. It's kind of a nice problem to have on the one hand, but at some point you've got to start presenting the information to the public. So my expectation is we would love to get the interviews done by then, but we will probably continue to be doing interviews and depositions even when the hearings begin. I think we will have done a sufficient number of them where we're not going to compromise the investigation by going public with what we're learning.
Understood. Some of the recent disclosures have been striking, and this is one of those times where different press outlets are pursuing their leads, but also, and I don't think this is a mystery to everyone at this point, sometimes relying on what the committee is finding or what has come out through that process. The court filings also end up having certain clues. Washington Post has this reporting that's quite striking. Amidst the talk of martial law, which we were just discussing, Giuliani, then acting as lawyer for the outgoing president, stoked conspiracy claims about voting machines. Trump seemed to signal his agreement. What is it that the committee hopes to learn from Rudy Giuliani? Do you expect that he will come testify?
Well, we're not commenting on witnesses that might come before the committee, so I don't want to speak about this in terms of him particularly or his testimony. But look, I can say that any of the players who were involved in bogus litigation, involved in discussions at the White House over whether voting machines ought to be seized or what the authority was or the declaration of martial law, we want to bring them all in. And obviously, I think Mr. Giuliani is a person who have a great deal of relevant information. But I can't confirm or deny whether he's appearing.
Spoken like an investigator, but our job to ask the questions. Speaking about something that is in the public view, I'm just curious, Congressman, what you think people should take from the exchanges between, for example, Senator Mike Lee and White House Chief of Staff Meadows. Let's put to the side the more difficult legal questions of when members of Congress might cross into criminal territory. As we've discussed on the program, there's a wider latitude when they're acting in their official capacities. But just as citizens of a democracy, it appears from extended text messages that he wanted to develop a way to have Republicans in states where Biden won just cancel out the votes with these alternate slates of electors. That looks like a blueprint that they at least think could be used in a future election. Putting legality to the side for a moment, which I don't always do, what are we just to make of that? I mean, is the committee putting that out there, and are we going to hear in June that that's really concerning, that it's wrong? Or you just look at this as fact evidence and people will decide for themselves?
No, I think it really is very much as Maya was describing. There's one issue, as you point out, is this criminal, is it prosecutable? But let's not forget, we're supposed to hold our elected officials to a higher standard than are they criminals?
Right.
We take an oath of office to defend the Constitution. How can you give meaning to that oath if you're essentially trying to overturn an election? If you're exploring with the President's Chief of Staff, well, how can we reverse this loss? How can we hold on to power? It should shock the conscience. And I don't think we're going to simply present it and say, this is business as usual in the Congress of the United States. No, it'll be presented in the context that there were multiple lines of effort involving multiple players at the highest levels of our government to overturn the election. Some of them involve the production of bogus certificates of elector. Some of them involve decapitating the leadership of the Justice Department. Some of them involve going into courtrooms around the country and making claims that they knew were patently false. Some involve getting Kevin McCarthy to try to get House Republicans to vote to overturn the election without a basis. And others involve the pressure campaign of the vice president. So we want to, in this series of hearings, lay out all of these multiple lines of effort. January 6th was the violent culmination of these efforts. but there were many of them. And I think, as Judge Carter in California illustrated, in some of these lines of effort, there is ample evidence of criminality, including criminality of the former president.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. I mean, Judge Carter was using the civil type probability standard because of the procedural nature of that case. But the bottom line in plain English was he said it's more likely than not that Donald Trump was involved in crime to steal the election. And then you have all these different avenues that your committee and others are revealing. So it's very significant. We know that you're busy and you make time. Go ahead. If
I could point out, you're absolutely right. He's using a different standard to make the decision that he needed to make in that case in California. But while to prove a criminal case requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt, to bring evidence before a grand jury, you just need to show that what you're bringing before the grand jury may lead to evidence that would reasonably lead to evidence of criminal conduct. That standard certainly has been met by what Judge Carter has found. And I am concerned that in Georgia, for example, where the former president, was on the phone trying to get the Secretary of State to find 11,780 votes that don't exist, that we don't see any evidence of a federal grand jury operating. Yeah, which is your careful way of raising questions about what Justice Department and Garland are doing, given that they say, opened the largest federal probe ever, but as you say, not taking that step. Again, as I mentioned, a busy time, and you were able to work with us on your schedule here to get into the top of the program. So thank you very much, Congressman Adam Schiff.